Welcome to Strata. I'm Glenn.
And I'm Brandon. Welcome to the Minds on Muscle podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Mind on Muscle podcast. I'm Brandon, and I'm here with my co-host, Glenn. And we are lucky enough to be here with one of our good friends and colleagues from the States of Exercise, Professional Education, and Physician Fitness, Greg Mack. Greg, how you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to this.
We're honored to have you. You're a mentor to us, a friend, a colleague. You've definitely done some amazing things in the fitness industry that is inspiring and exciting. And so we're really excited to talk to you more about that, to learn more of the inner workings of the Mack-isms, if you will, and have more people learn about you.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to go. I'll as much as I can.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Glenn, do you want to kick it off? What do you want to know from Mr. Greg Mack?
Well, I mean, first, I think for anyone who hasn't heard of you before and doesn't know a lot about the Certified Muscle System Specialist program, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the health and exercise and fitness industry?
Oh boy, that's a long story, isn't it? But I mean, I've been involved in athletics and sports my whole life, and so always exercising, always using my body, and wanted to be healthy and fit so I could play baseball and football and basketball and all that stuff growing up. So that's kind of the seeds. And then I was in the U.S. Navy. I had graduated from the Navy's nuclear engineering school and served on board a fast attack nuclear submarine in the engineering department for a few years, running the primary power plant. And I was also a Navy diver. And so every submarine in the U.S. force has a couple divers on board to do a variety of things, maintenance and inspections and radiation sweeps and stuff like that. So thing about the Navy dive school program outside of the regular military basic fitness requirements was, I had to stay at a certain level of fitness to meet, my qualification credential guidelines. And so I had to pass rigorous physical fitness testing periodically to keep my certification. So I really took my health and fitness personally very seriously then. And along the way, a lot of folks in my command started to ask me and my partners questions, my workout buddies, about staying fit and healthy. And as clueless as I was back then, I tried to help them. And next thing you know, realized I really enjoyed doing that a lot more than nuclear engineering on a submarine. So I started a small business on the side, and that grew. And I decided to look at maybe switching careers into the health and fitness field. So we're talking, 30 plus years ago now, 1986, 87.
And Greg, was there like a certain moment that you knew that, hey, I really want to do the health thing, and maybe my time in the service of the U.S. Navy has been complete? Or was it just kind of like something that you woke up one day and you're like, you know what, I love doing the exercise thing. I just want to go full bore into it?
Yeah, I think it was probably kind of a progressive process. I think, when my shipmate, my friend and I were actually making money, I was in Hawaii at the time, ordering supplements and weight belts and gloves and reselling them and making money doing that. I thought, wait a second, this is a pretty good deal and it's kind of fun. But I still wasn't sure about committing to a career in that. But when I decided to get out of the service and my tenure there, and I was searching around for what to do, I took a job at a Nautilus franchise. It's called Nautilus East Fitness Center. It was just nothing but Nautilus equipment, giant 10,000 square foot of first and second generation Nautilus equipment. And the owner, Greg Stoltz, kind of took me under his wing. He had his master's in exercise science from OSU. And I started working there and really enjoyed it, and realized, wait a second, I think this is what I want to do. Now, again, we're talking 1988, 89. So there wasn't even a personal training certification available. You went to get your undergrad or master's degree in it, and I don't know, tried to work in the field somehow. And so I was looking around. I should go back to school. What should I do? And then the ACE certification came out, and the IDEA Association, had come out with some information. And so I started looking at that and realized, oh, okay, I was familiar with certification from the military's process. You take the classes, read, study, pass the exam, and you're qualified. So I took the ACE personal trainer exam. I think it was the second one offered at the time, and decided, okay, I think I'm going to try to make a go out of this. And then I was hired by a chiropractor who I'd met at a health fair. And we were talking, and he was very proactive and progressive in his thinking and wanted, rehabilitation, exercise training in his clinic. And so he hired me, and I was off to the races. And that was probably around 1990.
Now, that's a really awesome point that you bring up, because I'm sure most listeners would agree if they are familiar with the stereotypical personal trainer or fitness expert. If you think of a personal trainer, generally speaking, you think of someone with a tight shirt and a whistle on their chest, and there's a very common, coach mentality. You're talking about several years ago entering into a chiropractic setting using exercise as a personal trainer to help people along with paramedical and medical processes. That's very new, especially several decades ago for you. 5 years ago for you, of course, but for several years ago, if you don't mind speaking to that, like, how did you find that transition from going from, being a military person using exercise to help improve your body, and then all of a sudden going into this rehabilitative setting? And where does that fit, do you think, in the future?
Yeah, I think, it's called the medical fitness space now, right? And the company Physicians Fitness I started was, based on my experience in this very progressive chiropractic medical setting that I was hired into to help manage and run. And that gave me kind of real, field level experience of, oh, this is what a clinical setting is, and this is the population. Now, while I was working at the Nautilus East Fitness Center, even before I met the chiropractor and all that, one of the folks that would come in to the gym every three times a week, probably, he was in a wheelchair. And he had been in a tragic accident. He was working on a called Levesque Tower down here in Columbus, and a spike had fallen off 30 floors up, a metal spike, and ran right through his collarbone, through his spine, and paralyzed him. It was terrible. And but here he'd come in his wheelchair, and Greg Stoltz, the owner, would lift him up and put him in the Nautilus machine, and he would do the machine. And I had never seen a handicapped person exercising. I had always been around able-bodied health fitness people, high performance kind of sports. And I thought, wow, man, this is incredible. Here's a guy who loves coming here, gets a lot out of it. It's helping with his life. And that kind of planted a seed in me, like, wow, this is really, I think, a population that, could use, these kind of services. And so combined with then meeting the chiropractor and working in that setting where people were coming in with pain, with musculoskeletal problems, kind of just put me in that niche that didn't even exist at the time. And the only reason I was even aware of a potential future in it was because I went to a workshop. It was like the second annual personal training summit in DC in 91 or 92, maybe 91. And Jeff Bensky, I think he's a psychologist doing demographic research in this field, presented a bunch of statistical information showing that what the consumer at that point, which was the emerging kind of baby boomer, what they wanted was their exercise and fitness programming coordinated with their medical care. So I just thought, kind of in my naivete and ignorance at the time, well, that's a good idea. I'm not a doctor. It makes sense. We're dealing with health and fitness, and people's health is important, and they got diseases, and sure, that makes sense to me. And so combined with my experience working with this very progressive chiropractic medical practice, I just said, this is the place to be. And so I wrote a business plan for Physicians Fitness, raised some money, and that's what I've been doing for 30 years.
Fast forward now, closing in on the year 2021, you've now got this, almost education, which is an adjunct to Physicians Fitness, which is now the Certified Muscle System Specialist Program. Brandon is, of course, an instructor, and I am, of course, an avid believer in all the methodologies and teachings that come with the program, and I use it in my practice every day. And I'm curious, how did you decide to start creating this education program, and why muscle specifically?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that, coming from a formal academic process in engineering, and knowing, standards and testing and, science-based background, I was a little surprised when I, kind of started getting into the fitness field, kind of how unscientific it was, or at least it was very superficial and kind of shallow in its approach. It was, mainly about bodybuilding and powerlifting and doing names of exercises. That was Joe Weider, right? Muscle and Fitness. Again, not that some of that information wasn't useful. It certainly was. But I was very systematic. And so I wanted to collect information just like I did professionally in engineering about the system that I'm dealing with and learn about it and figure out what's going on with it so I could manipulate and change it and try to improve it if I could and make it work better. And so very early on, I was developing my own systems for assessment and program development and interpreting the assessment data. And I just kept doing that, trying to get better and better at that, especially because most of the population I was seeing was coming in with problems. They weren't coming in with a general fitness goal of I want to run a 5K, or I want to lose 25 pounds, which isn't a bad thing. They had problems. And so I had to think a little more deeply and broadly about what I was doing. And I was accountable to, the chiropractic and medical staff who had also been through rigorous academic process. And so I just started developing my own system for doing that. And, was working with people who liked it. They would see it and they'd be like, wow, that's really cool. Where'd you learn how to do that? I said, I learned how to do it anywhere. I put it together over time. And I was having a lot of success helping people with these problems, and people wanted to know how I was doing it and what I was doing. And so I started formalizing it probably in the early 90s, probably 94, 95. I was involved with the Idea Association, was on their personal training committee, steering committee, chaired that committee for a few years. I think I was on for 7 or 8 years. And I was asked to actually put together some course material to teach at Idea, which I started to do. Mm-hmm. And I did a couple of big workshops and seminars on that. So that's really where it started. And the muscle part, to answer that question, Glenn, was I realized that, no matter what someone was trying to do to change their physiology, they were going through the muscles. The muscles were the medium that they were leveraging to try to change something. And so then I refocused and doubled my efforts on trying to understand skeletal muscle function. And that narrowed and tightened my approach to what I do now and what we teach in Exercise Pro Ed and through the Muscle System Specialist course, which is, how do you develop an expertise in the process of assessing what muscles are capable of or not, so that you can start to improve that and then eventually leverage them to do whatever it is you want them to do to change the physiology in a direction you want to change it, right? Which has many different goals. And my practice has just, again, because I've worked in outpatient PT, I've worked for hospitals, I've been in multiple different chiropractic clinics since then. I was always trying to put this process into the medical system because of that thing, Jeff Bensky said. I said, well, okay. And I was just exposed to more and more different pathologies and diseases and problems and pain, and was finding that, what do you know? Getting muscles to work better and through exercise helps people. It's crazy. So that's what I do all day now.
Greg, I got to say, the Muscle System Specialist program, I have to speak as giving you a bit of an endorsement. I took the program in a different iteration in 2014, and the combination of both the processes and assessment skills for assessing the biomotor control system, as well as the business processes you teach in the program, which has evolved from a 4-weekend program to a 5-weekend program, is absolutely the reason why I have the practice and the career that I have nowadays. I do find that in the fitness industry, at least for me, there was some interesting biomechanical rethinking exercise processes available in some rudimentary forms, but it was hard to know, how do you triage it into the business? How do you assess information in a way that you can get objective, quantifiable data to measure and work from, and then use quantifiable information and qualifiable information throughout the process to help with decision making. In fact, I remember really clearly the first time I met you as an instructor was an exercise class in the States. You were doing a presentation in front of 150 people. And at that time, even though I thought I had rethought exercise, we were still learning exercises in a very rudimentary, this exercise is for this muscle and you have to do it in this position. And I remember it so clearly because we were going through this and you came over to me and I was doing something and you go, well, instead of doing it supine, why don't you just put them on their stomach? I said, well, that's not how you do the test. And you said, well, why not? And that moment is when I started rethinking all the things I had spent years learning. And I know that through exercise professional education, one of the mantras you say and we advocate for is rethinking exercise. You don't mind me asking you, personal trainers, fitness professionals, perhaps people who are not in the medical fitness space, how do you think would be the easiest way for a personal trainer to start rethinking exercise and their practice working with clients?
Yeah, it's tough to break out of the bias, right? I mean, we like our little tribes and, we like the names of the courses we've gone through and we want to hold fast to the protocols and a different way of thinking. And so, which is really what Exercise Pro Ed and the Muscle System Specialist course is about. It's about thinking and how to try to be a better thinker and not get stuck in protocols and procedures and use information to be creative with it, really, because thinking really is a creative act. And so what can somebody do, right? Well, one, you need to expose yourself to a variety of information. And I would tell you to expose yourself to information outside of the exercise field, and start looking at what other branches of science and content domains and disciplines are looking at and how do they think about the body and the system and making decisions. And so that would be one recommendation. Try to get books that, aren't just about periodization and anatomy and what the name of a muscle and the name of an exercise are, but look at how other disciplines approach their own fields, and you'll get new ideas and new ways of thinking about information, which is really what we're trying to teach.
So that's an interesting segue, because one of the questions that I'd written down that I wanted to ask you was if you had any favorite books or reading materials that you love, that you either keep coming back to yourself or that you recommend to fitness professionals who are trying to break into the exercise and personal training and health realm.
Yeah, I got a lot of books. That's for sure. I like books on philosophy. I like books on cognitive process, like psychology and cognition. I like books on decision making. There's some excellent emerging books on decision science. I like books on the discipline of hermeneutics, the science of interpreting information. And so these are the kind of textbooks I like to read. I like to read about different disciplines in science. Physics is obviously a critical one, but I also like to look at other scientific, subjects. I look at material science. I was exposed to that in school, and now I'm very interested in the material sciences of biological tissue, which we incorporate now into our thinking and decision making in Exercise Pro Ed. We got to think about material science. So it's pretty broad based in that regard. But those are some of the topics, at least, I would encourage people to look at.
Greg, one of the things that inspires me so much about your process and developing programs, working with clients, is exactly what you just touched on, is that you're not only looking within one realm of fitness, you're really looking through the lens of multiple modalities and education platforms. So you can kind of come up with a summation of workflow to help people and help your business and help your education. To kind of bridge off of a question I asked earlier, but slightly different, there are so many professionals personal trainers, fitness experts, medical fitness people that want to get in this industry. They take all the education, but they really struggle at succeeding to develop their business to the level where they can financially sustain themselves and have the clients that they really want. Do you think there's one or a couple things? What would you say the number one thing is that a business professional may struggle with that may not take their business from A to B and where they want to be to succeed both financially and have the clients that they want?
Yeah, they're afraid to talk to people. It's a very shocking thing, to see, to meet someone who's intelligent and educated and, they don't have bad breath and there's not boogers hanging out of their mouth and their nose, right? And they don't want to go talk to people and say hello and find out what's going on with them, because this field is humans are your business, and without humans, you don't have a business, and that's it. And so you have to be good and understanding, that I got to be comfortable talking to strangers and finding out about them and to see if there might be a fit or a match between what they need in their life and what I do. And so overcoming whatever those internal saboteurs are that are in your head saying, don't talk to strangers. That person's going to be angry if I interrupt them. Those people don't want to talk to me, right? All these weird psycho-emotional things that go on that prevent us from engaging the world and meeting and talking to humans. It's primary.
Humans are scary. Talking to people that you don't know, I definitely would completely agree with you.
It's a strange thing, right? I mean, they're everywhere walking around. You probably only need about 50 or 60 of them to have a practice and make money. So you go talk to them. I don't know. It's so weird.
Well, I mean, that's one of the big things that I took away from the course is this, and you'd probably explain it better than I would, is the whole idea of identity and role and those tapes that play on a subconscious level. You even spoke about this earlier today, those tapes that play on a subconscious level that we learned when we were very young that prevent us from doing some things that we ought to do in order to move forward. And sometimes we also get tapes that benefit us as well, right? Some people just seem to get that social butterfly tape. How do people overcome this inability to talk to humans with all their excuses and their own biases that they have that come along with that, all that baggage?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Glenn. Some won't. I mean, if someone perceives something as very risky, they may never do it. So you're hoping to find someone who's passionate enough about what they want to do and is willing to face the discomfort, because I understand it myself. And it's a scary thing, to think I'm going to go call some doctors today, right? Expecting that probably none of them want to talk to you, right? So, okay, how do I do this, right? And that's a mindset. That's an emotional perspective that you can't really lose anything you don't have, right? And so we're afraid of loss. So sometimes you might need a professional counselor, someone to talk to say, hey, look, man, there's something weird inside of me. I just don't know why. I just get all freaked out when I have to go talk to strangers about what I do. And I want to try to overcome it. And you may have to do some digging to find out what it is inside that makes so anxious and afraid about it. But the other part is you're going to have to get on the bike and try to ride it, and you're going to fall off and skin your knee and bruise your elbow. And the question is, do you want to ride the bike or not? And so if you want to ride the bike because all your friends are riding the bike, you're going to take your knocks and figure out how to ride this bike. And so if you want to be a professional in the exercise and fitness field, you're going to have to get on the bike of meeting humans and strangers and talking to as many as possible until your schedule's filled and you're satisfied with the quality of it and the financial part. Because if not, this is why I think most people in this field are hobbyists, really.
Yeah, what's that? There's a Sandler training book called something like You Can't Learn to Ride a Bike in a Seminar, something like that. And it's one of the core tenets of the book is you have to go out in the world and do the thing you want to do if you want to get better at it. You just can't sit in a room and read and hear someone talk about it.
Principle's been around a long time, right? You just have to do it and have faith. I just heard Stockdale's principle today. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Stockdale's principle.
No.
Stockdale was one of the military officers who got caught up in where John McCain was, right, the Hanoi Hilton, and was tortured almost to death, during that terrible time period for several years. And let me see if I can find it. I mean, essentially what it says is, it's called the Stockdale Paradox, and it's tough. I mean, you got to be mentally tough to survive some of these things, because the world's a tough place. And what he says is, you must retain faith that you will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties. And at the same time, you must confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be.
It's not a light quote by any means.
No, it's perfect. It perfectly illustrates the point, though.
You got your certification, you want to work in the field, you get hired by a club or a gym, right? And they throw you into this high quota sales pressure system and pay you $15-18 an hour. And after a while, you're like, what am I doing this for, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know in this field end up becoming mortgage brokers or something because they can't make enough money, right? And that's unfortunate. Because that was their passion, and they walked away from their passion because of money. And there's plenty of money in the field. So the question is, do you want to learn and acquire the competencies necessary to earn it? And if you don't, well, then you won't. It's okay. If you do, well, then you'll learn it, but have faith and know that once you decide to commit, and figure out how to learn how to do this, and you'll have a thriving practice. There's no doubt about it.
Greg, I've made the joke a bunch of times in my study groups that those who don't succeed in personal training go and become real estate agents, because you go to open house and then people just come in the door and come to you. So you just got to deal with people coming at you instead of going and searching people, which I think is it's unfortunate, but talking to humans really is the key to having a successful practice. You got to talk to people. Greg, I got a question for you that I wrote down, and I'm going to try and pick your brain as much as we can in this little scenario. The muscle system specialist methodology has been really profound for my practice, and Glenn's and Taylor's and Eric's and everyone else here at Strata. And you've coined many different terms to help describe specific processes and scenarios, like biomotor configuration, force velocity curve, talking about modes of contraction. I was wondering if any one of those specific topics you think would be a great entry point for someone to learn more about the muscle system specialist, or if one of them is just your favorite to talk about.
I would say systems theory.
Systems theory?
Yeah, and information theory. Yeah, the body is an incredible learning system, and has incredibly complicated ways of producing and managing and governing information in it, right? I mean, as an engineer, on a nuclear submarine running a nuclear power plant, it's what I did all day, is process information, reading gauges, looking at tank levels, getting pH levels, looking at temperatures and pressures, trying to what? Figure out the state of the system, right? And then what would we have to do to change the state? Oh, we want more power. Okay, we're gonna have to change the state. What happens when we change the state? Well, we got some more risk. How are we going to manage that risk? Right? Okay. We got, when I was, one of the hardest things I ever did was what was called a reactor safeguard exam, where, senior engineers would come on board and for a week, 24/7, just crush us with scenario after scenario of some problem, right? Where they shut some valve off somewhere and then see what happens. And then you have to figure out what's wrong, right? And so problem solving is connected to information systems theory, in that, how good are you at observing, collecting information, and then processing it, realizing what's important and what's not important, and the relationships between this information. So that would be the area to focus on: information theory, systems theory, interactive, interconnected, interdependent component part.
I love that topic. And I think it's interesting because, especially in fitness land, there is a very isolationist view. I mean, especially with the providence of a lot of bodybuilding influencing exercise choices and conversations. This is a biceps exercise. This is a tricep exercise. I mean, we're not even taking into account the local systems, let alone the state of the rest of the system.
Nothing's local in the body. So the whole system's always involved in some way. In fact, that's the interesting, idea that, so for emphasized or isolated exercise, for me to perform a concentration curl with a dumbbell, where I just want my elbow joint to be moving through some displacement back and forth, must mean that I'm capable of not moving everything else. And that my brain is primarily focused on not moving everything else while I move this one thing. So to think that the elbow is the only thing that's working in that scenario is ridiculous.
Greg, from someone from the outside looking in, listening to this podcast, and even from myself, just taking the client intake course and now the certified muscle system specialist course, at the time, there were so many like eureka moments, from the IR, right, the identity role theory, to the information systems theory that you just talked about, even to I forget the exact name of it, but like looking at, do you have like a false positive or a true positive? Like, how do we detect signal detection theory? How do we detect if what we're looking for is actually what we found, and so on and so forth? And for me, there's so many eureka moments. And I'm curious if you've had any eureka moments over your past 30 years in this field that have really stuck with you up into this day.
Probably the revelations that came out of my study on hermeneutics, right, or interpretation, from my observations, and this idea that the system, the body, the brain, the chemical system, all the parts of it, you want to call it parts, is congresscent, meaning that it grew together. It grew serially and in parallel. It wasn't like somebody assembled you with welds and glue and nuts and bolts and connected it, and that this idea, essence, and that as a living organism, everything grew simultaneously and was calibrating itself to itself. Like the bones and the muscles and the nerves, they were all happening at the same time. And so they have an intrinsic nature about the relationship between those things that can't be isolated, and that you can't remove someone's bone thinking you have affected nothing else. That's not possible. You affected a whole lot of other things. And so that's the real revelation, is that anything that happens to any part of it has the potential to affect any other part. The question is it observable? Can we detect it? And then can we do anything about it? That's the hard.
I love it. Mary. And thank you so much, Greg. Honestly, I have one more question, and then I'll let Glenn round out the day with his last question that he's got here. And I want to try and make this a tiny bit more fun, because we've been poking at you, asking lots of information about all your academic stuff. And I don't want to make you work too hard here, but I was wondering if you could tell us about, I know that you have a history with powerlifting, and you spent some time at Westside Barbell, and you lived a different life, I would say, outside of the medical fitness world. I mean, more in a fun setting. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your experience in that world?
Got in a lot of trouble in that world. Some stories I probably shouldn't tell, as I don't want my mom to find out about. But yeah, and again, I worked out. I was very fortunate. I had a good friend from high school when I got back from the service. His name is Bob Coe. And you've probably seen him in the most recent movie, West Side Against the World. I don't know if you guys have seen this movie, right? Yeah. Bob Coe was a high school friend of mine. We used to go cliff diving together and hanging out. And when I got back to Columbus after the service, we kind of connected again. And he was involved with and friends with a guy named Matt Dimmel, who was a very early power lifter in the West Side world. And again, if you've seen the movie, you've seen his influence. He really put West Side Barbell on the map because he squatted like 1,000-pound back squat in a competition, 1,004 or something like that. It's a crazy number, you know. And this was before bands and chains and all of that stuff. I mean, this guy was a beast, and so I became friends with him as well. And so I started, out with those guys, and that's a hardcore training environment. That's for sure. And a lot of stories about working out with those guys and hanging out with Matt and Bob, because I saw Matt do some amazing things. He took me through a workout one time because he just knew powerlifting. So I think we did a bunch of back squatting, and then we went over, I don't know, he called them Dimmel destroyers. At Westside, they had a platform off the ground with a big slot cut through the middle of it, and you grabbed a V-bar with a chain, and you wrapped like a couple 100-pound plates on the chain, and you would stand with this thing hanging down between your legs, and you're straddling the slot, and you're kind of doing like a deadlift squat thing, and that was very painful. That was terrible. And then we had to go do reverse hypers. So then I went and did a bunch of reverse hypers, and then he had me totally supine on a bench with a 45-pound bar held behind my back doing sit-ups, trunk flexion. And this was the workout, and I think I lasted 5 or 6 minutes in my car before I had to pull over and just vomit like crazy. And I couldn't walk for like a week, man. I mean, it was terrible. And Matt thought that was a great workout.
Yeah, they're insane. I love that movie. I just think it's so ridiculous. I mean, I think at one point Lewis Simmons has knee surgery and then goes and squats within 24 hours of having the surgery.
Yeah, and lumbar surgery. Yeah,
that's right.
Spine fused, and he's doing reverse hypers the next day. Yeah, hardcore.
Not the kind of stuff that you'd find in the certified muscle system specialist.
No, we're a little more risk averse than that. But again, you got to remember their mentality was cult like in terms of we're trying to be the strongest power lifters on the planet, and he produced some incredibly powerful people. It's unbelievable, some of the numbers that you would see come out of that place. So, orthopedically, are they healthy? No. Musculoskeletal, are they really healthy? No. They don't last long, but they're powerful.
Well, it's interesting because speaking of cults, as a sidebar, one of the things I really like about the Certified Muscle System Specialist program is that we're all colleagues, and nobody is seen as better than anyone else. There's no hierarchy. It's how can we collaborate with each other to help as many people as we can with their health. And I have not experienced, and I tell Brendan this all the time when we talk about it, I haven't been a part of any other program or organization that works like the Certified Muscle System Specialist program. So I'm happy to call Brandon and you my colleague. It really brings me a lot of joy.
Well, thanks. Likewise for me, it's been my privilege and honor to know you guys and get to know you and work with you, and looking forward to it in the future, because I'm really a believer in the brilliance and the genius that comes from diversity and multiple minds. Everyone has different experiences and different knowledge bases, and when you bring that together and work with it in a constructive way, more good things tend to happen than being all by yourself, stuck in your head in a tribe somewhere.
Yeah, well, it's very similar to what you talked about moments ago, which is we're all growing through this together. It's not like all these people are separate entities, even though we all kind of doing our own thing, but we're all in this together, so to speak, right?
We're a group of thinkers. Might be hopefully, we're thinkers.
Best. Yeah.
There's an African proverb that's probably stereotypical that I talk to everybody about here, and I love it because alone you'll go very fast. But together we'll go much further. And I think that's a very powerful thing.
One last question for you, Greg, if that's okay. Sure. If you were to look back 30 years ago to when you first started this journey, and you could speak to young Greg Mack, what advice would you give him?
I would probably tell him to be patient, be more patient, and keep your mind open a little bit more. I think early on I was a little closed-minded about some things, and I would say don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Wise words.
Very wise words.
Yeah.
Greg, thank you so much for your time. It's really been an honor to have you on and to connect with you and see your face again. Really, really great. Greg, if anybody is looking to find you, learn more about Exercise Pro Ed, Physicians Fitness, where can they find you?
They can go to www.exerciseproed.com. Got a whole bunch of stuff on the website there, and got some things you can do. Got some free stuff you can download, some documents that actually outline our philosophy and some of the methodologies, the summaries. We got the Exercise Explorers Club, a bunch of video content on a variety of topics, pain and exercise and thinking and decision making, and some documents about neuroscience and neurophysiology. And then there's courses. We got some online courses available to you and some more coming up. And then if you want to see what I'm doing locally in Columbus in my practice with Charlie and Scott here, you can go to www.physiciansfitness.com, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there. We've got Instagram pages and Facebook pages and all kinds of social media pages. So,
no shortage of great content from Greg Mack, Physicians Fitness and Exercise Pro Ed.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.
See you.
Take care, Greg. In here. Well, that was a wonderful interview with Greg Mack. The one question I forgot to ask him was, what is your pick of the week? Brandon, do you have a pick of the week this week?
Oh, my pick of the week. You know what? My pick of the week is the Muscle System Specialist Program. And I don't mean to pick such a cheesy topic, but I'm very passionate about fitness professionals and personal trainers making a real go at this. COVID-19 has made it really tough for us to have a go at this, but I do believe outside of challenging yourself, working past some of your fears, the things that stop you from talking to humans, as Greg Mack said, and the Muscle System Specialist Program. I'm not trying to be biased because I'm an instructor for it, but the processes you learn and the business systems you learn, it is invaluable. Honestly, after the first week of taking the course and implementing some of the work, honestly, my revenue increased 30% the next month, which it already made it worth the remainder of the course. So I'm going to definitely pick that in being with last week's topic and this week's topic with Mr. Greg Mack. What's your pick of the week? Don't pick the same thing.
Okay, I won't. I was gonna, but I won't. My pick of the week is fostering animals. So my girlfriend and I are applying to be foster parents for animals, which just means that until they find a home, they come stay with us for a little bit. I want to get a little bit more into volunteering and giving my time to something outside of building my business. I find when you are volunteering your time, whether it's you're leading study groups here to help your staff or you're out there coaching soccer for little kids, I find that having some sort of volunteer work while you're exchanging your time for expecting nothing in return is a very fulfilling way, and you learn a lot along the way. And so that's what my girlfriend and I are working towards right now. We're in the process of finding a great agency that we can work with. And I think it's just going to fill me up. And so if you're looking to, especially because the holiday season is around the corner, if you're looking to help out a little bit and you're feeling a little bit lonely at home and you're spending more time there anyways because of COVID, consider fostering an animal. You might save it from the streets or from being euthanized, and it can go a long way to helping a little creature in need. So my pick of the week is fostering a little puppy or a little kitten or any other animal that you like to have around you for the interim.
That's a great one. I love animals. Honestly, we've adopted a bunch of cats, and one day when I'm not working as much, I will spend some time at an SPCA, definitely helping dogs and cats. So I think that's amazing. Everyone, thanks so much for listening to this episode. Greg Mack is someone I have known for a long time. Glenn's known for a long time. We've both seen him in his education process go through a major development over the last 6-7 years. He's definitely, as you heard, a very knowledgeable, astute individual. So if you want to learn more about him, check out the platforms that he outlined at the end of the show. And Glenn, where are we again?
We are on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, and iTunes. Always forget the last one, in iTunes. If you like the episode, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. And always leave some feedback and let us know how we're doing, or if there's any topics you want us to cover, because we would love to give you more information that you're looking forward to. Brandon, brick and mortar, where are we at?
If you're in the Newmarket area, we are at Strata Internal Performance at Newmarket, Davis, and Leslie area. You want to check out our 4,000 square foot spot with some amazing professionals, amazing machines, and some other cool stuff. Please come on by. We'd love to see you. You can find us at www.stratainternalperformance.com. But Glenn and I are Minds on Muscle podcast. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Look forward to seeing you soon. Hopefully have some other cool guests and other fun topics next week.
Take care, everybody.